Pamela, how did you find carnivore?
Well, Dave, I have a story like many other people, and so I just want to first say thanks for having me on. I love your show. I've been watching a lot of people's story, and so I'm glad to have a chance to tell my own. I I grew up in middle class America, but in California. My dad worked in a factory. My mom stayed home. We had four kids. We had a nice neighborhood. We ate the standard American diet, pretty much. I was born in 61, so in the 70s was full of, snack foods and ding dongs and potato chips and soda pop. My mom did cook, she cooked a lot of fried chicken and we had hamburgers, meatloaf, things like that. Never really was a big veggie kid myself, but I was always overweight from as far back as I can remember. I was the chubby kid in elementary school. There were about two or three of us, in the same grade. We always stood out. We became friends because we had a lot of the same issues of, kids picking on us. But overall, that part wasn't so bad for me. But I just grew up then into a young woman with these body issues, started yo yo dieting like in my teens. I remember, withholding food, starving myself, and then unfortunately binging. And later found out, yeah, I am a big carbaholic. And so went through teenhood. Parents split up when I was 12, so I had a bit of a rocky teenhood. I was kind of a rowdy kid. I dabbled in a lot of things, substance, smoking, drinking, some drugs, etc. But managed to finish high school. And then got married young. I was 21 when I got married and had two children back to back, boom, boom, and had gained a lot of weight, lost a lot of weight, did a lot of yo-yo dieting. I never really was an athlete, but I always liked sports and did scorekeeping for sports, worked out at the gym a lot, was always concerned about fitness, trying to get slim. Later on was in a dysfunctional relationship with a guy who was fixated on me weighing less than him. And I should say I'm, 5'11". And even when I weighed 150, 160, I felt I was fat. So my girlfriends were weighing 120, 130, and so just that continued. The message continued. And my mother, I love her dearly. She passed on some years ago, but she gave that, we weren't allowed to be too expressive with our emotions. Don't act too happy. Don't act too sad. Here, eat something. You'll feel better was always the message. So when I grew up, I was doing that to myself. Eat something. You'll feel better. A lot of emotional eating. And then, here I am, a mom. I've got two boys. They're active, whatever they eat. I also was buying processed food and eating junk that even when I was dieting, they would joke, oh God, mom's on a new diet now. And they would try to get the snacks out of the cabinet before I would go and, clear everything out. And so a lot of jokes about that. And in my immediate family, my mother was heavy. My dad wasn't. One of my brothers was lean. The other was heavy. My sister was lean. I was heavy. And we had other heavy people in our extended family, and we just learned to accept people. And it wasn't really, we had a lot of heavy people in our family. And so while I was married and raising kids, same pressure I put on myself, trying to yo-yo diet. I did everything you can think of. I went to nursing school when my kids were 2 and 1 and was a registered nurse for 32 years. So I had learned some things that I thought were true and did all the low fat, 5 or 6 servings of grains, all the low glycemic vegetables and fruits and all that stuff. And just got heavier and heavier and heavier. And then I peaked out. I got divorced right before I turned 40, had 2 teenage kids who were not very happy about that, lots of drama. was single for a few years and then got remarried to my current spouse. And I'm married now for 20 years to a same sex marriage. So there was all the coming out thing and the divorce thing. So piling on all the stress on top of being a registered nurse, which was a stressful thing. Then my parents also got ill. And so working with my siblings to take, so the stress was just piling on. Okay. And then fast forward to the pandemic. And all I will say about that is working as a nurse in the pandemic made the stress for me unbearable, just unbearable. And I was witnessing these patients with overweight like me, obese. I actually got to the morbidly obese stage, hypertensive. I was pre-diabetic for about a decade. I had horrible GERD. I had had an ulcer, had horrible sinusitis and allergies. Just a miserable, miserable person. And it really got my attention, seeing that those are the category of people who were really, really getting sick, and dying from this thing. So that got my attention. And I said, okay, I got to figure something out. I got to do something different. What I'm doing isn't working. Well, then, in how I actually found carnivore was that in 2021, my older boy mentioned this thing to me called Bitcoin. And I was actually watching a Bitcoin podcast with Dr. Saifuddin Ammous, who is an economics professor. And lo and behold, on his channel, he had a doctor on, Dr. Kate Shanahan. And she has done a lot of research about the seed oil. She teaches about nose to tail eating, home cooked, don't eat the ultra processed stuff, lower your carbs, that kind of thing. And I thought it was very interesting that he was having her on. And then he shared during that podcast with her that he himself had been a carnivore for 15 years. So mind you, as a nurse, I've seen all these things on YouTube and heard all these crazy fad diets and all this. And all I ever thought when I saw those, early carnivores, like, those people are crazy. They're going to kill themselves. It's really unfortunate that they think they can eat that way long term. My thinking, right? Like, I knew better. And here I was, so sick and so heavy and trying everything. And so when I thought about that, I had met him in person. He's lean, he's healthy, he's intelligent. He told his story about being a junk food junkie. And just the fact that he said he had eaten that way for 15 years struck me. And I thought, there's got to be something to that, because he's not an idiot. He's been eating that way for 15 years. He's not dead. Right. So then I started exploring a little bit more about these crazy.
The not being dead thing is always a good sign.
Right. I thought he would have died a long time ago, and he clearly didn't. And he has a brother who's a physician. And so, he tapped into some of that knowledge. But anyway, then I started hunting and going through down the rabbit hole and all the different things on YouTube and all the controversy. And I've always been a researcher. If there's something I'm interested in, I will learn. I was a pediatric oncology nurse. So, I always learned above and beyond what was required, for me to know. I enjoy reading studies. I could actually get through them and make some opinions, but it made it easier when I found Dr. Baker and Dr. Berry and all the ones that we as carnivores pretty much now, and Homestead How, Healing Humanity, right? And just kept reinforcing all of these things. But I was looking for the argument against, right? So that was my thing. I was looking, I got to dig deeper. There's got to be some really concrete stuff that is going to tell us why we shouldn't. The more I kept trying to look for why we shouldn't, the more I kept finding why we should, right? All the anthropological stuff, historical stuff, things that just made sense. And then also, I had known as a pediatric nurse, we had kids with seizures, and some of them did not respond to medicine. And we were sending them off to a specialist, and they were putting them on ketogenic, high fat, almost only fat, ketogenic diets, and their seizures were gone. And so all these things started clicking. And I'm like, if changing your diet could be that powerful to take your seizures away, because I'm hearing all these interviews of people, oh, my arthritis went away. Oh, my diabetes went away. And I'm thinking as a nurse, yeah, right. And like, what are these people up to? So more and more interviews, more and more people. We finally went to one of the beef roundup in Wyoming, where there was Dr. Lisa, the eye doctor. Dr. Chafee was there. They had a panel. We learned a lot, and then we went to this place and we're eating a bunch of beef, and it started to really sink in. So it was 2 years ago in September, right around September 15th. My spouse and I had already lost weight because we had made a decision and cleared out the house, and we were already going to not do highly processed food and really got rid of the sweets. Occasionally in a social thing, so I made a nice potatoes dish. You might eat a little potatoes like that, trying not to make waves or offend and not really talking too much about what we were doing. This is more like keto. I mean, we had done South Beach, we had done paleo, we had done keto, but I was there with the almond flour making the keto brownies and all the crap, right? And even though I did lose weight, I still had all my issues, my hypertension, my prediabetes, my all the things, my sinusitis, my allergies, my joint pain, all of it. I just felt really, really miserable still. And I'm like, okay, it's probably, contaminated food and vegetables grown. And so I started growing my own vegetables even. And we pretty much ate our own homegrown vegetables and the best categories of meat and fish and things that we could get. Lost a little more weight. I lost 20 pounds a year for 4 years in a row, pretty much doing that kind of stuff. I think I lost the last 20 really during this 2 years of carnivore. But the big change for me was shortly after we started actually eating carnivore. I wasn't so worried about the weight anymore. I still had weight to lose, but I was confident that it was going to come off. But I just started feeling better. Like my stomach got calm. I had such extreme GERD and a history of duodenal ulcer that a GI specialist had to write an exception prescription for me because I was taking the double dose of Prilosec twice a day. So the insurance, you could buy it over the counter, but I needed a prescription to get that dose, and it was always a little bit of a fight. And he finally got it all documented and scoped and said, yeah, you have to stay on this for the rest of your life, right? And then I was taking Benadryl and nasal steroids to help with so I was still taking all the same medicine, still having all the same symptoms until we got rid of the vegetables, which took a long time for that to make any sense. And I thought it was a coincidence. Something else made me feel better. I'd bring the vegetables back in, and then the symptoms would come back. I'd take the vegetables back out and I'd feel better. And I kept thinking, this is some kind of weird coincidence. I'm stubborn. I had to do that to myself. I don't know how many times. And even now, we do occasionally, like I'll eat some avocado. I'll put my little salsa in my soup or something I can tolerate. But if I do it tiny little bits too many times, like within a week or something, the hint of the symptoms will come back. My stomach will start rumbling. I'll get a little heartburn. So we've been doing it for 2 years now. And the first year, we were just amazed at how many things felt better. I was on 5 prescriptions. My spouse was on many prescriptions. She's 10 years older than me, so I'm 64 now. She's 75 now. And despite all my great things, my high blood pressure going away, my GERD getting better sleep, less anxiety. My body composition changed a lot, even though my weight hasn't changed much. I'm more happy, optimistic. I don't get big mood swings anymore. My skin, I used to have a condition called sebaceous hyperplasia. And just about every year I'd have to go to derm and they would burn, 10 or 20 spots off my face. And these things just kept growing and growing. I don't have that anymore, right? My skin is cleared up. So many things are better. My endurance at the gym, in fact, I just went to the gym today and I was impressed with myself again. Like I can do a lot more and I don't feel wiped out after. I feel fine. I have a bad back from many years of nursing and a couple of car accidents, and I have a bad knee. But I'll tell you, I have supposedly had severe arthritis in both knees, like stage 4, the worst. Recently talked to my orthopedist, even though my knee is a lot better. The left one, which I call the bad one, gives me more trouble than I would like, and it's hard going upstairs, etc. So I had a conversation with him, and he said, "Well, wait a minute, let's back. What about your other knee?" And I said, "Oh, my other knee's fine. It feels great." He goes, "Pamela, did you even look at your recent X-ray that we just did?" I said, "No, I didn't, because I knew you were going to look at it, and we were going to talk about my left knee." He's like, "I don't understand why you're not having severe pain in your right knee. It is gone." And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. My right knee feels fine. Both of my knees used to hurt. Then they both got better, and it's just this lingering, intermittent left knee that's really more that it's unstable to me than it hurts. And that's why I, you know, made the appointment. So I am going to be getting my left knee surgery. I think it's going to be good. My back is getting a lot better. I don't take any Tylenol. I don't take any Motrin. I don't take any. I take nothing. And so my own doctor, I have a pretty good relationship with her, but she's in a big healthcare system that we have here. She has to check the boxes and follow the algorithm. And she was resistant to me coming off my blood pressure medicine so much that I started having um, near fainting episodes, and a condition like
Oh,
POTS, postural orthopedic tachycardia syndrome. So when I would stand up, my heart would race, my blood pressure would drop, and I would almost hit the deck. Thank God I never fainted, but this went on for months. And so we were lowering the medicine and lowering and following up. She told me, drink fluids. I'm like, I'm drinking fluids. Like, and then she says, maybe you're not eating enough and all these things, right? And then I just took myself off the rest of the blood pressure medicine and monitored myself very carefully. Went back about 6 months later, and even though I hadn't lost much weight, I look very different. She goes, "Oh my God, you look so great. What have you been doing?" So as soon as I started telling her, her facial expression changed, her body language changed. She sat down at her computer, she was typing, and she told me, "I can't believe you're a registered nurse. You know better. This is not going to be healthy for you long term. And oh my God, look at your LDL that we just did. Here, you have to start this statin right away." And I said, respectfully, I've done a lot of research too, and I'm going to not take the statins. I'm obviously way healthier. In fact, while you're at it at your computer, I'm taking none of your medicine. I have been off everything. And so she wasn't too happy.
that
When I
that
tried to discuss with her, oh, go ahead.
sorry, that reaction seems a bit like you hurt my ego. Type faster.
Right, right. And so I shared information with her, like the National Institutes of Health article that was published from Nina Teicholz, where she summarizes the whole history of that whole diet, heart, cholesterol hypothesis and how much of it is bullshit and things that have been disproven. And I said, I haven't had a heart attack, thank goodness. If we really want to know the status of my cardiovascular health, why don't we do some of these other things? Like I'll even pay for it. Um, Coronary artery calcium scan. That might be nice because my mother had a heart attack and a stroke, right? My other brother, who was heavy, had type 2 diabetes for decades and ultimately died complications related to that and kidney failure, had, amputation of part of his foot. I've been watching all of this go on. So desperately trying to do something, right? So I don't end up in the same boat, because it was, as a nurse and as a family member, it was hell watching them suffer and die, slowly with all those complications. So I was really determined, and I accept the fact, especially early on, maybe I am wrong. Maybe I'm misunderstanding all of this, but you know what? It's my choice. I'm doing it. And if I don't continue to feel well, or get well, I will admit I was wrong, but I haven't gotten there yet.
So, one of the interesting things is, the doctor and the rest of the medical profession and whatever would have you look at the other family members that have had health issues
Oh,
and kind
yeah.
of go,
Just,
keep going in the same direction. And it's
yep.
like a logical person would look at that and go, well, hang on. This is eating this way, they've all gone in this negative way. Perhaps maybe I could try going 180 degrees in the opposite direction and see what happens.
What have I got to lose? The highest weight on record for me was 285. It was at a doctor's appointment. I didn't weigh myself after that, but I can tell you just from looking at photos, I was probably easily 300 at the peak, and I got myself down below 280, started feeling encouraged. I remember when I got to 260. I remember when I got to 240 and 220, and now I hover around 2. Sometimes I get a little under 2, sometimes I'm a little over 2, but like I said, body composition, strength, endurance, all that, way better. Yeah, 5'11". So I've always been, a big gal and big boned and all those things that they say. And, oh, well, you don't look like you weigh 260 pounds. You carry it so well. And I'm thinking in my head, yeah, but I shouldn't weigh 260 pounds. I'm not 7 feet tall. But as amazing as all my own health improvement and journey has been, the real thing that I want to add in before we wrap up is my spouse. I've been with her for 20 years, and she has moderate to severe persistent asthma her whole life. Okay. And up until we started carnivore, she was still on daily inhalers and steroids and would get pneumonia every winter. And we'd always have to travel with the nebulizer machine. That was just part of our life, and that's the way it always was. We started in September 2 years ago, and that winter, she had no bronchitis or bronchial infection or anything, no asthma symptoms. We just on our own started reducing everything. She never needed her rescue inhaler. She's not been on any steroids now in 2 years. And her doctors just go, oh, they don't believe it's connected to the diet. They think it's some kind of mysterious resolution, of her asthma. But she did get mono, this Epstein-Barr thing for a while when we were transitioning. And I was really worried because she had like swollen glands and a different kind of cough. So they kept trying to blame it on her asthma. Long story short, she had $1 million workup, and it was not related to her asthma. And that virus has gone away. But in that process, they also checked her out thinking it was a GERD cough or something. So they scoped her belly and found that she had a pretty extensive autoimmune gastritis condition in there that can lead to cancer of the GI tract. So we got very alarmed about that, but I'm happy to say her follow-up scopes and things show that it's not completely gone, but it's about 70% better, just the lining of her gut, since changing the way she eats. She has so much energy now. She has lost about 50 pounds. She's 75, but you wouldn't know it. She's very, very active. She used to have severe osteoarthritis in almost all of her joints, taking medicine for that. Same thing. She takes zero medicine, not even over-the-counter anything. And it just, as a nurse, this stuff is just blowing my mind. I want to scream it from the rooftops and tell everyone, and especially all these interviews you do. I see people with severe rheumatoid arthritis, MS, your own story, Dave, and people with serious neurological conditions and mental health issues and respiratory problems and the ulcerative colitis. It sounds too good to be true. If it wasn't happening to me personally and I was just hearing it from everybody, I would just say, oh God, that's so much noise and nonsense. These people are crazy. But it is happening, and it did happen to me and to my wife. And I think our friends and family listen for a while, and then pretty much they kind of get sick of hearing about it because, nobody wants to give up their favorite foods. And true, I have heard people get well when they went vegetarian because they cut out the, processed foods and things like that. So they got a certain level of wellness, but not long term. I don't see these people 15, 20 years in looking healthy and robust and as vibrant, really, as I. So I think cutting out the junk is one thing. And if you have a carb addiction, for me, I had to treat it just like any other substance issue. I've had them over the years. And so I dabble once in a while, and I always dial myself back, and I always know that it's wrong. And that's the only thing I want to say. Like, nobody's a perfect carnivore. I'm not a perfect carnivore. I don't know what a perfect carnivore is. Like, I like Dr. Barry. He talks about the spectrum. We find out what makes us feel better, educate ourselves. And I always just, what have you got to lose? Like, just try it. You might be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. So it's interesting for me that you're a registered nurse, because I feel like your education, your experience, your work history adds an extra hurdle or two to get over to accept that this might be a way that you could eat.
Yes. And here I am, supposedly educating other people on their health and what they should be eating and how their lifestyle. And I was a mess. I was very, very ill, very, very stressed so I retired early at 59 and no regrets. The last 4 years have been great. I've had nothing but time to learn about gardening, time to learn about finance, time to learn about healthy ways of eating, and just all the books, the lies I taught in medical school, the lies I learned in medical school, all these great books, because I had to reset my mind. It was really hard for me to accept, even though I was seeing all these improvements in myself. But I'll tell you, the thing about the asthma for my
Yeah.
spouse was just mind blowing because no one had ever talked to her about how her eating could affect her asthma. Like, she just had to live with it. And it was miserable and scary. So it's gone.
Yeah, and for her, that it's just like it's a life sentence, because it's just, well, you just have to manage it.
Yes. Try this inhaler, another inhaler, this pill, another pill. Sorry, you're still getting sick every winter. That's horrible. Here's a bunch of antibiotics. And just that cycle every year, every year. So we're so grateful. And so now people will notice, we haven't seen us for a while. Wow, you guys look great. What have you been doing? And if they honestly ask me, I tell them I'm on a meat based, whole food, super low carb, almost zero carb diet. And that's why. And then that's puzzling and it's confusing and they think it's weird. And then if they don't know me well, they'll think, oh God, she's become a crackpot. But I'll tell you, the people that do know me well and know that I was a good nurse and know that I am a person of integrity, they have listened. A few here and there have listened and are starting to. And when I give them resources, I say, thing one, educate yourself. Actually, thing one, try to cut back on the junk food and eat a little more meat. And while you're doing that, read, listen, watch, learn, and then see if it makes sense to you. If it makes sense to you, go for it. If it doesn't, then continue on, with what you're doing. I live in a 55 plus community and we're all over the board. There are some up in their 90s who are still doing great. They're just, however they live their life, they're still doing it. They're fine. But the majority of them are having mobility issues. They take lots of prescriptions. They go to the doctor a lot and it becomes like their whole life. And so we just feel free. I spent my whole life feeling hungry until 2 years ago. When I finally started nourishing myself, I feel so free that I'm not just hungry and fighting it. People think that overweight people don't have willpower. That's such a fallacy. I had so much willpower and I could resist and white knuckle it and starve myself and go long periods of time without eating. But that's not really what it's about. It's about what you are eating. And to nourish yourself is what I finally did. And I don't think I've been hungry, not really that hangry, in 2 years, which is great.
Yeah, I think, and this is the reason that I could never go back, is as much as, I would just eat anything before, like
Yeah.
I was like a garbage disposal. Um, and the reason I couldn't go back now is because even if I wanted those foods, uh, I know that I'm never going to feel full. Like, if
Right.
I go
Right.
back for the rest of my life, I'm gonna spend the rest of my life thinking about what's next to eat. And
Yes.
I don't wanna waste my time worrying about what's in or not in the fridge.
Right. I'm so free now. We just came back from an 11-day Alaska cruise. And so you have every food available all the time. But because we've been doing this now for a good 2 years, I mean, did I have a little soft serve ice cream, like small little thing? Yeah, I had that. And I believe one night we split a dessert. But most of the time we were in that steakhouse. They had the ribeyes, they had the strip steaks, they had meat. And we would eat that and be so satisfied that we could walk right past all that other stuff. But because we did dabble a little bit here and there, by the time we got home, yeah, my left knee is like the meter for me. I went too far and I had 2 days of pretty bad knee pain, but got myself right back on track. And that pain is gone now. And I just, every once in a while, I get those reminders, of why I just can't have that food. It's not worth it.
Yeah. You just reminded me of something there when you're talking about, like, you know, going on a holiday or something like that. Um, in my kind of past life, when I go out, if I would go out anywhere, whether it's on a vacation somewhere or whether it's just out for the day,
Yeah.
all the arrangements were always around where we're going to eat and when we're going to eat. And well, we can't go on that hike because there's no restaurant at the end of that. And then we're just going to be
Right.
hungry. And like everything revolved around entertaining my taste buds. And it's just such a massive waste of life.
And gatherings are like that still for us, the majority of the gatherings. Our older boy and his wife are eating pretty much this way. They're not, they don't identify as carnivore, but they sure eat a heck of a lot less other things and way more meat. And they've both noticed that they feel better. They're just not ready, or they don't have enough of a why to make that further leap. And maybe they will in the future, or maybe they'll be okay like this. But so when they come over, it's not weird to them if all we do is throw some steaks on the grill. And maybe if you really want a side dish, maybe it's going to be a bratwurst or something, like some people have to have more than one thing on their plate. It just seems weird, but they're fine with it. But, our other son, he has our 3 grandkids and they eat whatever they eat. And where we live here, they have social gatherings and big potlucks, and just the long table is just full of ultra processed, starchy, sugary foods. And so we bring like a charcuterie board, or, some kind of, I'll cook a big brisket and we'll just take it. And they all love it. It's like one of the first things that gets eaten. But what they bring is different. And so we've learned now, for going somewhere, we'll either eat before or we'll bring something that we can eat, to the party. And then if there's nothing else, we'll just eat that. And if you're traveling and you didn't pack anything and didn't eat, you can just, it's so easy to fast for 12 hours 18 hours, even 24 hours if your flight gets delayed or whatever. Because it used to be like a crisis, if you went so long without eating and then you're hangry and you feel like you can't focus and you just really, so then you'll just eat anything, whatever the first garbage that you find.
Right. So
Yeah.
speaking of eating, what's your day-to-day menu plan like?
Yeah, we have tapped into the local beef rancher idea. And so for the last 2 years, we've done a big quarter cow. I mean, that's big for us, for two people, cow. So we're buying beef in bulk, but we're also buying meat at the grocery store and at Costco, like everybody else. And like many people that I've listened to over these 2 years, I have identified that I definitely feel better when I stick to beef and lamb. I do eat chicken and pork and fish. I'm just saying, I don't feel as nourished as when I eat fatty beef, fatty lamb. So that's what, and eggs. So I eat a lot of beef and lamb and eggs, and that's the majority of my diet. I do eat some dairy, but I had to dial back a little bit on the dairy because I can overeat the dairy. And I think that is not really, essential. But I do occasionally have a little guacamole if I make a taco bowl and I just put like I said, I put some salsa in here and there. On the cruise, I think they served some lovely asparagus on the side of one of it, and I ate some of it. But when we go to the grocery store, yeah, we're buying eggs, we're buying beef, we're buying lamb. My spouse still eats more pork and chicken. It doesn't seem to bother her that much. But so yeah, it makes for. I do the coffee. I still do the coffee in the morning, but I do coffee with butter and no sweetener. I just put the butter in there, and it's so delicious. So I did notice that I upped my fat intake, my percentage of fat intake, and I started sleeping better and just, I already feel good, right? And then so you recognize when you feel a little better, when you try something. I do a lot of experiments, N of one. I try it on me for a week or 2 weeks and see if I notice any change. And I do occasionally, drink a diet soda, but I have clearly cut back because I used to be a Diet Coke multiple, per day. And so now it's kind of like a cocktail. It's kind of like a cheat. I don't really notice any negative side effects when I drink it, but I just know it's not good for me. So I just drink sparkling water
Mm,
and coffee with butter, and
nice.
that's it.
And sorry, you eat it as like 2 meals a day, or you're just eating when you get hungry, or?
Most days we eat 2 meals. So in midday, we're cooking eggs and beef or whatever meat leftover we had. Um, and then usually in the evening, earlier evening, I'll have either slow cooked something, or Arlene is a grill master. She'll be out there, grilling up something. But I eat between a pound and 2 pounds of meat. If it's on the lower end, it's because I've eaten more eggs that day. If it's on the higher end, it's because, and some days I don't eat any eggs. But I'm not doing macros, I'm not counting calories, I'm not even really, I'm just eating foods that I know are higher percentage of fat. I eat a lot of ground beef, a lot of eggs, a lot of ribeye, and other fatty cuts, brisket. People worry that it's costly. It's really not when you consider all the other stuff you're not buying, and then how nutritious the food is that you are buying. It's really a value. Not to mention the prescriptions you don't have to buy, the appointments you don't have to go to. I mean, I can counter that argument pretty well because even Dr. Berry shares if you buy the cheapest ground beef chub in the market and those cheapest eggs, whatever, that's still better than 90% of the food in the store. So I
Yeah,
think there's a place for everybody to get healthier by making different food choices. You don't have to be, you know, well off with extra money to do that.
right. So have you being in the residential area that you are, have
Mhm.
you convinced anyone to stick with it?
One so far, my friend Bobby. He is about 6 weeks in, and he noticed right away his belly is more slim, and less inflamed. His joints are less inflamed, but he has a serious skin condition like psoriasis and multiple areas of skin cancer on his head and neck and face. In this short period of time, his skin is clearing up. I mean, that's the thing that he's really noticing. We can notice the whole overall thing, but yeah, he has more energy. We just played bocce ball yesterday together, and I hadn't seen him in a couple of weeks, so I noticed right away. I said, "How you feeling, Bobby?" He goes, "I'm feeling great, actually." And he lots of good focus. He's feeling positive mentally. His skin is healing up. His belly is slimming down. His spouse is not on board, and a couple of his family members have asked him, "Oh, you're looking good, Bobby. What are you doing?" And he opens up and tells them, and then he gets all this, "You're gonna die. You shouldn't be listening to that crazy nurse where you live. Like you should." So he's already at the point where I'm just telling people I stopped eating junk food and I'm making better food choices. I said that's good because that's the truth.
Yeah,
And then if they get more interested and they really want to know, then you can share more. But there is this kind of like, I don't know, social stigma about saying that I mean, we say carnivore, even though we're not 100%, I'd say somewhere between 90-95% carnivore, depending on your definition of carnivore. I try not to get all hung up in all that crap. I just know I'm a super low carb, most days no carb, meat eating person,
yeah.
animal product eating person. That's it. That's how I define it.
Mm. Just on your friend Bobby, like the fact that his skin's clearing up, things like
So
that
quickly.
have flow-on effects, as you mentioned, for mental health. Like for someone
Yes.
that's dealt with skin issues all their lives, when that suddenly starts clearing up and you can look in the mirror each day and realize, you
Yes.
don't have to be embarrassed about, patches on your skin or something
Especially
like
when it's
that.
on your face. That's
Yeah,
what everybody sees. It's very dramatic and very mentally it messes with you mentally, your whole image of yourself.
right.
So,
So when you have friends or family members telling you, "That's crazy, don't do this," you're more mentally resilient to deal with that because you're feeling so much better about yourself.
and we're 2 years in, you know. So I'm like, I'm pretty sure if my heart was going to get all clogged up from all that saturated fat, I wouldn't be doing sprints on the elliptical at the gym. I mean, Sean O'Mara, I watched his stuff and I was just fascinated with that, you know, sprinting thing. And that has really helped me in terms of my body composition and my breathing and just endurance in general. I mean, I feel like it's a cheat code for life. You only have to do it for a few minutes, a couple times a week. It's like the
Right.
easiest, fastest thing. I've always been a gym person, but now I just feel like I'm cheating
Right.
because
Um,
I'm eating all this protein and I'm doing these sprints and it's working so well, and I just feel like so easy
it's kinda like we found the cheat code, but
for
actually all
life.
we've done is stumbled over how we should have been doing it the whole time.
Yeah, we've rewound the tape back, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of years. And just that's when it really, like I said, I'm a researcher. It made a lot of sense when you think about how long sapiens have been on the planet and how we did eat up until 400 years ago. So, what happened? And now look, everybody's so sick.
Yeah, and
Really heartbreaking.
we continue to be told, "This is the way we should be eating," but look at the state of us.
It is really, I'm so much more hyper aware, but I'm also very sympathetic and very empathetic. And I know that watching those people get so sick and die during that pandemic, and then watching my own brother just get so horribly sick with the dialysis and everything. The last 2 years of his life was my definition of hell. And we just watched him slowly deteriorate and then finally pass. It broke my heart. And I thought, it was a big wake up call for me. Like, I'm going to do something. I'm not going to just go down this path that I was already on the path. The high blood pressure, the prediabetes, the obesity, and then the POTS. Feeling like I can't even stand up. I'm going to faint. There's something seriously wrong with my body. And so I'm grateful. I don't have any of that anymore. I just wake up, I just feel great, and I just go do my day. And grateful.
Yeah, nice. So if you were giving someone advice, someone comes to you and says, "Okay, Pamela, I'm willing to give this 90 days to see if it works for me. What do I do?" What would you advise them?
I would say first find common ground with them. Like, okay, in a lighthearted way. We all know that the donuts and the cakes and the candy and all that is not good for us. So try to eat less of that, except for a moment that eating meat is something we've been doing for millions of years. It's not really bad for us. Start making some more meat choices. But little things add up. Do it a little at a time. And I would probably know this person a little bit. Where are they coming from? What have they been through recently? Or what have they tried, right? And it's very individualized because of your health history. I don't tell, stop all your medicines and just eat ribeye. I don't do that. But a main thing I try to get is say, you have to learn about it. You have to learn about the human body, how it really works. You have to learn a little bit, unfortunately, about our dominant, health system, which isn't really a health system. It's a sick system. And I can easily send you some easy to consume information. Some people don't want to read. They don't want to look at a bunch of studies. So I often refer them. Ken Berry is one of my go-tos, and your channel. On this channel, he interviews people. They just tell their story and you can listen. They're not selling you anything. They're just telling you their testimonial. And then Dr. Berry has more of a holistic, I think people can, there's not so much, you absolutely have to do this or don't do that. So those are my two go-tos, honestly. Your show and Dr. Berry's references and his website and his YouTube channel to get started. And then I just said, there's more and more and more information, and I'm here for you. If you have questions, here's my, you can text me, you can call me. And I just try to be, I do have one other friend, one that went on the cruise with us, and she's almost there. And so she's been asking me for more information. So I've been sending her links. And then I'm never on Facebook anymore, but I have a Facebook page. Anybody who's my Facebook friend, they see now, all I'm putting up there is just like healthy way of eating, links to these things, the link to the paper that you might want to read about saturated fat. And so probably nobody's even looking at it. But I figure, hey, if one person looks at it, that's worth it. And I actually have gotten a few side questions after I post that. They won't post it right on there, but they'll like side message me. Hey, I saw that thing you posted, and they'll want to discuss it. So I'm just available. I'm just making an example of myself. And really just, I'm not on the bandwagon. I'm not trying to convince everyone. I'm really just selfishly doing it for myself and for my spouse. I want to be around for hopefully my great grandchildren.
So, Pamela, if people want to reach out to you, do you have any way of getting in contact?
Yes, they can reach me by email. I
Mhm.
still have my old original Yahoo email. So it's yahoo.com.
Yeah.
And it's Pammy, Pami, 95688 at yahoo.com. Because back in the 90s, we would attach our zip code to our email so people could see what part of the world you were in when they were emailing you. And I've had it since 1993. I haven't changed it. So I open it every day.
Wow. Yeah, no worries. I'll put your email in the show notes. Pamela,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, you too, Dave. And again, thank you so much for what you do because it's probably more important than you could possibly realize.